Hey, converted man here. What is a lobster? We've been asking this question for centuries and spent billions of dollars on it, but yet nobody seems any closer on figuring out what a lobster is. I'm joking, of course. What a lobster is fairly straightforward. It's a fairly straightforward concept, right? Well, yeah. I mean, defining lobster, simple as, you know, looking up what lobster means. But not so much for other words. Ah, man, this topic, natural language, the bane of my existence. Natural language is unresolvable with logic because we use the same word in multiple different ways and mean different things by the same word. Now, there's this quote unquote documentary, Not Enough Quotes in the Universe, by this Matt Walsh guy that I've never heard of, called What is a Woman? I watched about 20 ish minutes of it before I had enough. Noel Plum does, I think, a good enough recap on it for me. Uh, I think that the guy is being disingenuous. I think that he's approaching it in the wrong way. It's not the sort of well thought out thing that I would want. Um, there's not a lot of nuance, or maybe any nuance there. It's hard to know what was or wasn't edited to make him look good and other people look bad. The person that he found that was on his side was like not a good person to find. So it's just weird choices throughout. And yeah, so the argument didn't there wasn't any argument that was being made in this documentary. There was like the question. It's hard to know that he's really actually looking for an answer to the question or not, or if it's just all, I don't know. It's like the Ray Comfort sort of man on the street interview thing. And that's way too easy to manipulate. Now, he does talk to a couple of professors, um, and all that. But again, because he's editing things, it's hard to know that if he's being genuine or not. Anyway, so that's all that. The question of what a woman or what a man is, I thought, well, that's straightforward, right? You just go for the biological definition. Well, then I was like, oh, well, what about gender? I'm like, bleep, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. And this other video I my brother was telling me about, um, I listened to it and it blew me away, and I think I finally understand after quite some years of really not understanding a lot of the things. Professor Dave explains, the video link in description. Uh, he did this 10-minute video, 10-minute, 17-second video on let's get past all this confusion about trans people. Well laid out, well explained. He does say one thing that might get him canceled, I guess, and if it does, that's terrible. But whatever, everything like there's a little bit that I disagree with him on, but not everything he said that was scientifically based was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, oh, okay, I get it now. I understand what this is. Like, I get it. I think that there are things that people come up with that are useless. Like there's a slogan, trans women or trans men or men. That doesn't help us. That doesn't forward the conversation. It doesn't explain anything to anybody. It's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? And in this so-called documentary, one of the people that the guy talked to was like, well, a woman is somebody who identifies as a woman. And it's like, That's not helpful. That's not useful. That doesn't explain anything at all. And surely you have some better definition than that. He's like, well, you're just asking for biological sort of scientific definition. It's like, yeah, I was just asking for a definition. I don't know that the guy was being genuine or not, but I would think that a professor in a university should be able to give some sort of answer. Although he did edit out a rather long explanation that the same professor gave about gender, so I don't know what was said because he kind of fast forwarded through it. So yeah, I don't like that so-called documentary. And for more on that, just say go watch Noel Plum's recap, because I find that I agree with Noel Plum on everything that he said, his summary of the events, and I side with Noel. Okay, uh, that's not to say that Noel can't be wrong or that I can't be wrong, but if I am wrong, it's Noel's fault and not my fault. So there. Okay. No, it'd be my fault too, but okay. Um, so what is anything? What is a lobster? The concept of things is sometimes nebulous. So what a table is an abstract object of the mind. So table can refer to a lot of things, and so it's a broad idea more than it is something that you can pin down. So you go, well, it's a flat surface that has four legs that holds stuff on it. Well, some tables have three legs. Okay, well, it's definitely a flat surface that holds things. Well, then a floor is a table. And it's like, I don't, so there's certain ambiguity in many definitional terms. And the only way out of that, the only escape from that, is artificial language, where you have one word that means one thing and that's it. It doesn't mean anything else. And here is where a logical argument could be made for multiple words in gender, which is something that I was like, oh no, I'm against this, rage. And I'm like, why am I so against this? Well, because there's no logical underpinning that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean there isn't one. It's just I don't know of one. So if somebody knows of one, let me know. But zim, zer, z, zer, whatever, all this. And I think that this is arbitrary. It doesn't seem to have any linguistic underpinning to it. And it's like, oh, I needed an identity, so I will pick something that seems like that it fits me or whatever. And it seems rather arbitrary, and it might be. I'd rather have a logical underpinning to it if we can do that, because if it's going to be an artificial language where we say, okay, for the intersex person that has this and that different chromosome and this and that different feature, we're going to call them, whatever that is, fill in the blank. Then that becomes an artificial word that we've created for that particular set of people that meet those criteria. And that might be something useful in biology, or it might be something that we don't need. I really don't know. It could help clarify the matter, at any rate. So it could be a gateway towards a logical underpinning for an argument for different gender words, or maybe even we just separate it from the word gender, because you can get confused with that word or whatever, or some people do, and just say, okay, this is what we're referring to this group of humans in this way, and this group of humans in this way, and that it's like, well, but not everybody falls inside the box. Yeah, no kidding. So we're gonna have to invent new words that fit more people, or we're going to have to live with the ambiguous nature of language. I'd rather invent new words. I'd rather have the artificial language in many ways, but it has to have a logical underpinning. It has to actually mean something. Otherwise, it's useless to do. Uh, and yes, identifying as invisible pink unicorns would be not a logical underpinning. It would be something abstract and and something that doesn't really fit. So you have to have some sort of rule set that defines what is something that can be identified as and what isn't, and so you have to have that argument. Otherwise, somebody somewhere will run away with it and go woo woo nutsoid with it. Although that could be an appeal to consequence, because people are probably going to do that no matter what you do. But let's try to prevent some madness. So, what is a unicorn? The name of this is for me to kind of go over that this understanding that I've gone through kind of today of listening to this one documentary, quote unquote, and thinking about what is a woman, and listening to Phil talk. I should link him as well, because he did the whole thing on what is a woman. I'm like, come on, Phil, it's not that hard. Just do the biology thing. We're done. Why does it have to be so difficult? And I'm like, my brother had to remind me, like, well, it's not easy. It's complicated. And I'm like, no. I want it to be simple. Well, why? Because maybe because that's how I'm used to thinking. That's bad. I got to question that, right? So sometimes it just takes the right sort of explanation to get it through your skull, and that's what happened when I listened to um, the doctor explaining it. That really just helped me a lot. The professor explains, rather, not doctor necessarily. He might be a doctor. I don't know. Winston's philosophical investigation is all about the difficulty of definitions. Great book. Yeah, I have to add that to my list of things to read. Yeah, I mean, this is something that uh, that I really struggled with this gender sex thing, because I couldn't make sense of it. And for me, I recognized it was a natural language problem, but that wasn't a satisfactory answer. I knew that there was something more that I was missing, some piece of the puzzle, and I was asking people to fill in that piece. And then this video comes along. It's like, oh, that's it. I get it. It clicked. And so now I understand it. But it could be wrong. Professor could be wrong for all I know. That might be the case, which in that case, I'd have to rethink the things that I've thought through, and that's fine. But as in all things, well, we would need a logical argument. So, do we have a logical argument for what a lobster is? Well, we have a scientific definition, and I think that's pretty decent. So, I guess we'll go with that. Lobster doesn't seem like an abstract concept like table does or house does, because what a house is, it's hard to define. Or home is also hard to define. Well, you have a trailer, but that's a home. But is it a house? You have a shed. Is that a house? Or is it a shed? Could it become a house? What make house? Why house is house? What is house? What is anything? And so, hey, Methic, what is like talking to Steve Mexria about 0.111 equals 1? I don't know what you're talking. What are you talking about? Oh, Witten. Okay. Yeah. I like how Brian said, hey, Ig. Methic's like, I know what you're talking about. Okay. Anyway, so concepts are not so easily defined, and woman, man, like, what is it? What does that mean? What does it mean to be a man? I don't know. I don't know, but I am a man. Well, how do I know that? Well, because I mean, well, I mean, it appears that I'm a man. I feel like, what does that mean? That's not an argument. I need an argument. I need a logically valid argument. And the only thing I can do is go, well, uh, I have the chromosomes. Well, have I been tested to make sure that I'm not intersex or whatever? No. So I might not. So what if I'm not? Then what? I don't know. So I'm assuming that I'm male based on my genitalia and my emotions. That doesn't seem like enough as a skeptic. Like, do I need to get, or should I get, like, blood? I don't know, what would it be? Blood test? I don't know. How do you find out what your chromosomes are? I don't know. But, well, I could, hypothetically, I think, get that tested and find out, and then I would know for sure. And then I could share that information with everyone and say, there you go, there's what it is. And now I know whatever that is. So, but is it okay to assume that I am what I think I am without verifying that I am that? And as a skeptically minded person that I try to be, whether I succeed or that or not is another question. I have to say I don't know that it is. I don't. It doesn't seem like it's okay for me to just be like, yeah, I'm a guy. Yeah, I was like, don't I need proof that I am to myself and to others, or is it just, well, I'm me and that's good enough? I mean, like, I call myself Dan Green. That's not my real name. That's on my book. That's not my real name. I'm not going to tell you my real name, except unless you're a friend of mine who I trust with that information. And that's like a handful of people, very select few people, because, that's just how I am. But, and then I guess that goes into what is the self, and more questions in my brain. And maybe that's what makes it hard to answer any of these sort of weird questions that we think are easy to answer. So, I mean, and my chromosomes chromed. Yeah, funny. So I guess I'm in this video. I'm asking the question, "What is a lobster?" as a sort of a joke. Although you could answer if you wanted to, and that's fine. And then, yeah, you align with society as defined as okay. So here's Math Pig's answer. You align with society as defined as male attributes when it comes to gender, both your biological sex, you check with your chromosomes. Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable to me. That to say I'm a man in terms of sex, at least, I don't know. It's like it's an assumption I'm making. Now, it's an assumption based on what I think are decent reasons, but maybe not good enough reasons. I don't know, because it's like this, like, do we broadly speaking need to find out this information for ourselves and others? Well, no, we don't have to. But if we are concerned about believing what is true, we can't do that unless we know for sure what is actually true. And the only way to do that sometimes is to get some sort of test. And then one way or the other, whatever that is. Now, can tests fail sometimes, but, what's the likelihood of that? So, yeah. Yeah. so the idea of asking what a woman is or what a man is or what a lobster is and all this, the deep conversation that should come from it, that sometimes I admit I'll rail against, because I think it can go too far one way and it can go too far the other way. It's not super simple. It's also not overly complicated. It's like, well, it's somewhere in the middle, right? Well, I don't know where it is, but it's like, I don't want the overly simple or the overly complicated, but that sounds like an emotional thing. And it's like, I got, so it's, is about trying to understand and grapple with these ideas that are, for me, still kind of new. It, for me, from my perspective and what I've grown up with and experienced, etc., this gender being different than sex, that's completely new to me. I mean, and it's been there for years. Like I said, I've been trying to figure this out for a long time. Um, but it is something that I was satisfied to remain a mystery. I'm glad that it's resolved to some extent, um, and that there's nuance there, and there's a discussion there, and that discussion could be interesting. It could be not interesting, and um, I think we have to underpin it with reason and logic and being civil and all of these things and when it comes to certain topics, some people are very can get emotional about it. And in this so-called documentary, the one of the guys that the dude was interviewing got rather emotional. And yeah, that didn't seem to bode well. I mean, he's a professor. I would think he'd be used to being questioned. He just started asking questions back instead of answering the question. And I'm like, I'm all for the Socratic method, but this seems like you have shut off. He's like, oh, I'm going to end the interview. I'm going to walk away any moment now. And it's like, maybe you should then, because you need to cool down a bit and then rejoin it when you have a calm head and give an answer to his question. And maybe the answer needs to be a little bit better than a woman is somebody that identifies as a woman, because that's not really an answer. Give some sort of answer. It's got to be, it's got to be something. It's somebody that uses the current in within the gender thing. If that since if professor is correct, then it's uh, completely dependent upon how your brain views that. If you're talking about gender expression, that's a society thing, which will change over time. So maybe for you, being a woman is wearing a dress and having long hair and wearing makeup, but that's not what all women do. In fact, I don't remember the last time I saw a woman wearing a dress. Yet our bicycles for women are still, they have that little slope thing, you know? That's for the dress, which doesn't make any sense because the bike for men has the pole there so that we crush our balls when we fall off our seat. So it should be the other way around, like, but whatever. Anyways, but why is that the woman's bike? Well, just that's tradition, and it's hard to break from tradition, and that's where the conservative quote unquote kind of lives. Is like there's some value to tradition, and to some degree there is, but tradition for tradition's sake can and should be challenged, but you have to be able to negotiate, and the other far side doesn't want to negotiate. So neither far side wants to negotiate, and that's a problem because you've got to. So okay, forget the fringes. What about the non-fringes? They'll negotiate, right? Well, maybe they will, but how do we get people to do that? I have no idea. Um, so that's that. There's my thoughts, broadly speaking, on the question of what a lobster is. Um, so be sure to tell me that I'm wrong, or and how, you know whatever, if you want, in the comments, or maybe I'm right. I don't know, or I don't know. You have your own views, and I value those views, and I need to know that because your input matters to me, and your critical feedback matters to me, and I try to take that on board, and I try to apply it, and I try to think about things and understand things. But do note, I will apply skeptical reasoning to you as well. So if you make a claim, I'm gonna be like, how do you know that? And I'm gonna ask you questions. I'm gonna make tell you to prove it. And I'll say this again because YouTube removes links from the comment section. It also removes email addresses. It's very annoying. But if you put a link or an email address, even if it's to Google, YouTube will just vanish that. And thanks YouTube to complain a little bit. This is a tangent. You can stop watching the video now. This is a completely incoherent tangent. It has nothing to do with the previous conversation. YouTube currently, as I record this, is doing this weird echo thing with comments, and like they're doing duplicate comments, and it's even happening on old comments, and it's really annoying. And it's like, here, let's pull up an example. So here, I think you can see that. No, that's a little bit hard. Okay, here we go. So here's their thing. They're saying main problems that you made a video, blah, blah, blah. And then they're saying, oh, okay, here's my thing. YouTube deletes links. And then YouTube deletes links. Like, I only said that I only typed that once, but it's showing up twice. And it's even doing this on older videos. I'm seeing it like, I don't know what the bleep's going on. So that's annoying. But yes, YouTube will delete links and I won't be able to see them. You can see them, which is weird. You might be able to see your own link, but I can't see them. It's annoying that you can no longer provide citations peer reviewed. Right. So once again, if you need to send me if you need to give a link for a thing to prove your assertion to me, the pesky skeptic, and I can put it in my next video that I make on the subject, if I make a video on the subject. ECONVRGD one at gmail.com. That doesn't always work either, Yin Yang. I've actually said deconverted man at dot and had it been deleted by YouTube. So I don't, goodness knows. So yeah, at any rate, sometimes, like, I don't know, there's workarounds that seem to sometimes work, but sometimes they don't. But it's just easier, just email me it. There you go. Just email me it. And that way I can look at it. I have time to think about it and review it and dig into it, etc. And go, okay, there you go. Now we had Satan's Little Helper said that in 30 minutes he would love to live stream with me. So it's almost been 30 minutes since he said that. I was at 9:40 and I can't count. Apparently 4, 5, 6, 7. So at 9:70. Wait, that's not a number. Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna do a new stream after this one, and I'm gonna call it whatever, and I'll just open it to anyone that wants to pop in, and that will be a thing. So tune in for that if you want, and that will probably get deleted later because it won't be worth keeping. Not that this one's worth keeping. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And Brian only has 5 minutes. Oh, darn. All right. I'll see you there unless I don't or something. I don't know. All right. Goodbye for now. Bye.